Hello, hi, welcome to Juhl Media. My name is Ching Juhl. I host this live interview for a while, maybe 4 years now, and today's episode is 275. And today we have very, very special guests.
So I'm Harold Rosenbaum, and to answer your question about diet, I'll just very briefly tell you that I have not had meat, fish, dairy, or grains for 50 years or so. So I feel good. I'm almost 75. I feel good. I started my Canticum Novum Singers, which is a volunteer group, a very good volunteer group, 50 years ago, and we just concluded our 50-year run by doing the B minor Mass, and actually Grant was singing in that. And I started my New York Virtuoso Singers when Lucas Force, who was conducting the Brooklyn Philharmonic Orchestra, and I was the concert master of that orchestra, asked me to form a professional choir, which he wanted to call the Brooklyn Philharmonic Singers, to do a very complex piece by Hans Werner Henze called Orpheus Behind the Wire. So I did that, and then I realized I really have to have a professional choir doing contemporary music. And so thus was after that concert, I started the New York Virtuoso Singers. And in the past 36 years, it has collaborated with orchestras and opera companies and dance companies. I've conducted about, 150 concerts with them. We were the first, and I think the only choir to be invited to the Tanglewood Festival of Contemporary Music in 1993, and then asked back in 2003. We've commissioned 120 composers, and I've conducted almost 600 world premieres, and the group is on 49 CDs. Well, nobody listens to CDs anymore, but we have some projects, recording projects in the works, and that's about it for now. I can't hear you.
Forgot to put my microphone on. That is like amazing career, and plus you have such a disciplined diet, and I would love to learn from you. Yeah, let's move on to Greg.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit hard to follow that with my life story, but I'll do my best. The short version, I've been in school for a while now. So my undergraduate, I did an oboe performance and composing. Went on to do a master's in composing, and that's actually where I met Miles at Yale. It was in grad school. I started playing oboe at the hospital. So I was going into patients' rooms and performing kind of like short solo performances for people. Over time, I guess the medicine bug bit, and I made a little bit of a career pivot. Ended up going to medical school after my master's, and I'm graduating next week in 5 days, actually.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That is very different path, right? Being a musician and transition to a medicine into. And I'll have more questions for you later. Hey, Miles, how are you? Tell us where you are.
Well, hey everybody. I'm in Italy. I'm in Venice right now. Nice to be able to join you from here. My name is Miles. I'm from the U.S. Pianist and composer. As Grant said, I was at Yale. I was there for undergrad and then stayed for the master's in composition. Then lived in New York for a bit of time, doing all kinds of playing. Had a church choir, had a church job. Now I'm actually based in London, but this spring has involved a lot of traveling, so I'm happy to be able to join you from here. I'm at the keyboard, but you can't.
Wow. Awesome. So talented young people here.
I just want to say that over the past few seasons, I did 15 concerts of Bach choral movements from his cantatas, and I hired 5 or 6 different pianists. Miles is an unbelievable pianist. I just want to say that, and he's hopefully working with him in the future.
Well, thanks. I should have mentioned actually that's how I got involved
that's okay.
with Harold and the New York Virtuoso Singers. Came in to play a bunch of Bach cantatas. No, the first 12 by BWV number,
Right.
not chronologically, but
I mean,
which are
if I
marvelous.
had, if I had money for an orchestra for 15 concerts, I would have done that. But I wanted to.
I would have been out of job.
I just wanted to do all that Bach,
Well, it's really a joy actually, because pianists, I think every instrumentalist, every kind of instrumentalist thinks that they know Bach. Violinists think, well, I know Bach, I know the violin Bach, and cellists have their Bach, and pianists we very much think that we have all this Bach for us, for the keyboard. But it's really barely scratching the surface, and those cantatas are some of the most astonishing counterpoint that he did. I mean, it makes the rest of the stuff sort of as amazing as it is look like just stuff for fun on the side, which is actually probably how Bach did it.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
it's cool to spend some time with the cantatas.
Yeah, I think it takes such discipline to play Bach, and sometimes it sounds very easy, but it's so not easy, right? And in many auditions, either orchestra or conservatory, they usually put Bach there, right? And I was like a trembling, when I play Bach, because if you make mistakes, everyone know it. But if you don't make a mistake, people think it's so easy, right? So, right? Yeah, effortless. So, yeah, Sophia, hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, dear.
Totally, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia Ouyang. I'm a Chinese American composer. I grew up mostly in China, and now I'm finishing my undergrad at Columbia University and also the Juhl School for music and philosophy, and I'm going into the DMA program at Columbia next year. And yeah, so I think I'm very inspired by obviously music and also philosophical and literary elements in my music, and I also conduct a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, can I ask you which city you're from?
Yeah. So I grew up mostly in Beijing, but I also moved around a bit. I was in Dali, Yunnan for some time. I was in Thailand for 2 years, but mostly Beijing. Yeah.
Wow, I love Dali. It's so beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah. So many of you, including Harold, you're all smarty pants, and yeah, it's just really amazing, amazing your career. So back to Harold. So Harold, tell us a little bit about the competition they won, and what is the competition?
Okay. They can probably speak to this better than I can, but before I get to that, let me go back to about 8 or 9 or 10 years when I approached ASCAP and asked them if they wanted me to do something like this. Like this meaning performing world premieres by the ASCAP Young Composer Award recipients. And they actually gave me grants, and it went on for years. So I ended up doing 50 world premieres by the young composers. And, most of them and most of these guys at BMI will be our leading composers, 20, 30, 40 years from now. So then I went to the BMI Foundation, and they gave me a grant, and I commissioned
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What is BMI?
Oh, Broadcast Music Inc. It's a performance rights organization. ASCAP is the American Society for Composers and Publishers, and basically there are two huge companies. I think they compete among each other. I don't get into that. When I like a composer's music, I don't say, are you ASCAP or BMI? It's meaningless to me. But anyway, I've conducted close to 1,900 concerts in my life. I've done everything I've wanted to do. I mean, I can do the B minor mass for the 4th time, and I can do the, I can repeat, and I can do works I've never done. But my tendency these days, and my inclination and my love really, is to challenge myself with very complex music, and specifically to work with young composers and give them a vehicle to have their works performed by a professional choir, get an archival recording they can use on their websites, whatever. And that's what this is about. I do want to say that Sophia recently told me that, so these three are recent winners of the BMI Young Composer Award, but Sophia recently told me that she won it again. She just won it for a second time. So she must be really good. But they're all good. They're all phenomenal.
That's
And
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
the music
Yeah.
is, by and large, the music is very, very hard. And my singers are up to the challenge. They love the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome. And Sophia, speaking of you, and do you guys like have a style, like in classical sense? People have classical style, romantic style, 20th century. So, what is your style, Sophia?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's interesting because I definitely feel that me and also a lot of young composers around me, we have certain ways of writing music or approaching music that we're drawn to, that we kind of you see reoccurring throughout pieces, and of course that is an evolving thing. But the idea of like a style is very like it's like a kind of music history view of looking back to this composer, what they've done, and then
Right.
characterizing that. But I do think that I have certain shapes or structures that I return to. Like I really like music that is sort of, I tend to write music that has different voices intertwined among each other, and there's this like organic relationship between how they develop. So I think that's something I do. And so sometimes you can hear that there's this kind of almost like organic animated movement between voices. I think that's something I tend to do. I don't know if that counts as a style yet.
Yeah, because style in terms of, I taught music appreciation for 15 years in a college, and I would always tell my student this style, that style, but these students are not music major. But I think this is like a 21st century, and it is there's really not a box, right, to put your music in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because in late 20th century already, it's like people go wild. You guys are wild. Back to Grant. Hi, Grant. So, can you tell us a little bit? Are there any relationship between music and medicine? Are there hugely differences between these two?
Hmm. Sure. This is something that comes up a lot in the medical field, I think. People always want to hear more about this. I always think there has to be some kind of relationship. The representation of musicians in the medical field is much higher than you get from just any random subset of a population. To the point that major medical centers have their own orchestras, choirs, jazz groups. Cornell previously had its own orchestra, but it's a very small medical school. So a little bit difficult to get a 70-piece orchestra together here. But I do think that there's a lot of overlap. So there's things on the humanities side, just the study of and looking into things that are so different from you from times before, across cultures, all over the place. That's definitely an emphasized something we call like a soft skill in medicine. And then a big overlap is in the area of training for both fields. There aren't a whole lot of fields left where we still train on this apprenticeship model, where you study one-on-one or as part of a small group with one expert in your field. But a lot of medicine still is, like music, based on this apprenticeship model. It becomes very apparent when you're doing things in, say, the OR, where it might be a student, a resident, so a doctor in training, and the attending physician, the definitive expert in the room. And it can be the three of you, and you're both doing the case together, but the attending physician is also giving real-time feedback, kind of like what you'd seen in a lesson. A lot of overlap, too, in the kinds of topics that are discussed. There's, of course, like knowledge-based content, which you see both in medicine and music. They'll give you tips for efficiency. They'll give you tips for making your process flow better, advice on taking on a leadership role, communication within the room, kind of like chamber music. Could go on for a while, but I'll stop myself there.
Are you going to keep making music while you become a doctor?
Definitely. That's been something I've tried to really prioritize in med school, even though it's not easy. I have really tried to make music into a priority, even during the busy months and years of med school.
Awesome. By the way, can Grant and Harold and Miles, can you give me a link in the private chat of your work, so maybe we can hear a little bit later. Okay. All right.
Sure.
So back to Miles, and what made you study in Europe, in Italy and Germany?
Oh, no, I'm not studying in Italy or in Germany. I just have a project here and then some concerts in Germany. But I came to London just because of a specific teacher. George Benjamin has been a favorite composer of mine for a long time, and the chance came up to study with him, and I'd never been to the UK. I'd actually never visited, but it's one of those things where when the chance comes up, you're like, well, great, I'll certainly give that a try. So yeah, I moved there in October, and yeah, now it's March. No, it's May. That's
That's
the
a lot
oddest
of
thing I've said so far in the interview.
there's a lot of musical things in London, right? It's a very cultured city.
Yeah,
Have you have lived in Manhattan, in New York?
I lived in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah, they're
So
similar.
yeah, how do you compare musical scenes in New York City and London?
It's a little too soon, maybe to for me to compare them fully, because New York is still a bit more home turf. I mean, I am from the States, which is something you learn, I think, more forcefully when you're abroad, that you actually are from where you're from. It's funny because none of my grandparents are from the States, and you grew up with those mythologies, and but then when you go abroad, you really learn, oh, I'm actually really an American in a lot of ways.
Where are you from?
I'm from New
Originally?
Hampshire. I was born
Oh,
in a small town up in New Hampshire, and
where?
grew
Can
up
I?
there. Keene?
Key. I went to Waterloo. I went to. Do you know Waterloo? It's like in the middle of nowhere.
Waterloo,
No,
New
not
Hampshire?
Waterloo. Not Waterloo. Waterloo is Iowa. Let's see. Where did I go? I'll come back. Yeah. So I know New Hampshire a little bit. Went to like 4 different cities. Yeah.
Got it. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we
Yeah.
have 4 cities. We have some towns, but
Okay. So
Ching, I
yeah.
need to jump in here to say
Please
number one,
jump.
I'm technically challenged, so I don't know how to type what you asked for.
Oh.
So
Oh.
I'm
No. Yeah. No.
haroldrosenbaum.com. I don't
Oh.
know
Okay.
what you want.
Oh, I'll find you. So
And
basically, in the private chat, you can.
I don't know how to do that. So,
Okay. Okay.
okay.
All right. It's
So
fine.
and
Maybe Sophia, you can help him. Yeah. So find his website.
I'm on a phone, so I would actually have to leave
Oh.
the studio, I think, for a second, or put my video on pause to
Oh.
type that.
what
Okay.
do you need? Can I tell you what you're
Tell
asking for?
Sophia your website.
My website, haroldrosenbaum.com or
Yeah.
nyvirtuoso.org.
I'll send it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, Miles, you're here. You have your instrument. You're the only one have your instrument. Can you play us a little bit? Please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a
Mute.
instrument,
Everybody mute.
which is
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
Mute. I think I know how to do that.
Gosh, I mean, do you want me to just improvise something, or should I finish comparing London and New York first, or attempt to do it in a song? Okay, all right, I'll play. Of course, I have no idea how this sounds because my phone is just sitting on the piano, and it's whatever miking is happening.
Yeah, it's a little
that way.
bit with kind of echoey, but that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay.
But I am in fact at a piano. That's some sort of proof.
Well, I'm sure you're on YouTube.
Yeah, there's some stuff. There's definitely some
In fact,
stuff
yeah,
of me playing up in other places. But can I quickly go back to the New York London question? So it's London is just much bigger spatially. It's sort of the same number of people, but one of the things that's been the biggest adjustment is getting used to a city that just spreads and spreads and spreads, and so it really feels very different because it's sort of a collection of little towns, more than it is a densely packed city. So that's been one adjustment. And of course, it's a different musical scene. It's very different musically. There's a ton of music going on, but the gig structure is quite different. So the biggest way it manifests is that people rehearse way less. So everybody's just sort of a crazy good sight reader and does things on one rehearsal pretty much all the time. And then they sort of sight read it in the rehearsal and sight read it again in the concert and forget it and go on to the next gig the next day. So it's kind of an exhausting pace for a
Oh my
working
gosh.
musician. But of course, there's a tremendous amount of music, you know, and a rich musical culture in London and in England, and sort of a bit more of a connection with the continent as well. Sort of sits between Anglophone world and you know, more French music. My teacher has a lot of French influence and studied there, so we feel
Now,
that a bit.
Miles, how would a chorus? I mean, there are some great choruses in London, obviously. How
Yeah.
would one of them do with the piece that you wrote for me? Would they be
Gosh.
able to perform that on one rehearsal?
I don't know. I haven't. Yeah, I'll have to test that at some point. I don't know. My understanding is that the choir schooling is also very uniquely good. Because actually, that's also where a lot of the sight reading comes from.
Yeah.
Is there's a huge tradition of choral scholars and very young people, boys and now also girls, being picked, you know, at a very young age for their voices and then being really well musically trained, and how. And performing not just every Sunday, but every day, different major
Right.
choral rep from the centuries.
Right.
So they just really learn how to sight read. And then if they play an instrument, they take that with them into their instrumental playing, or if they go into singing eventually professionally, they just have sort of a lot more comfort reading notes on the page and instantly spitting the pitches out than most people from other parts of the world do.
Right. Ching, can I just ask you, do people who are watching this know when my concert is that we're talking about?
Yeah, we can also put in the description once you're finished, and you can just tell me also, we can make announcement. So a lot of people actually will watch this replay. So we have some audience right now, and I want to thank audience. I'm glad you mentioned that. And these are my loyal audiences, and they always come to almost everything I do. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Louis. And thank you, people who are listening but not making comment, because sometimes people have no YouTube account. Somehow they can listen, but they cannot write comments. So thanks for being us. I wanted to thank Jeffrey James for hooking up with me and Harold. And actually, many years ago, when I first came to New York, I don't remember which year. It was like a long time ago. I helped Harold and Suzanne to make a video about your interviews, right? Harold, do
Right.
you
Yes,
remember?
I do remember. Yeah, it was for a GoFundMe project or something like that.
Yeah. It's a funding. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show Harold's website, and so you can tell us like which one. So I'm gonna bring the website up, okay? So you can tell us.
Probably nyvirtuoso.org would be better than my
Yeah.
personal one.
Sophie gave to me. So
Good.
can you see?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see.
Yeah. And which music you want me to play?
Oh, you want to play some? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Verate Cheli is rather spectacular. The one on the bottom right.
Oh.
It's a long piece, but
Well, just listen to a little bit.
listen to, yeah.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's by Thea Musgrave. It's her 90th birthday concert, as you see.
And mute ourselves, please. That was beautiful. Let me exit this. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this work, Harold. Unmute yourself, dear. Mute. Okay. Yeah, I think you can do it. I cannot hear you.
Okay. Well, it's all about the forces of evil battling angels and archangels. I mean, it's a very powerful work. It's one of I've conducted a lot of very difficult music, but this one has to be one of the 5 most difficult ones to conduct. And because there's so much happening, there's so many meter, dynamic, entrance, exit changes going on constantly. It almost can drive a conductor crazy. But I think it's a powerful piece. And it actually ends on a major chord, a 6/3 first inversion triad. And I've been tempted to say, Thea, it's tonal. Let's just end on a root position. But I never had the courage to tell her that, to change it. But yeah, it's very powerful, and it's not done often. I think every one of the 24 or so chamber choral pieces of Thea's, which I've conducted, I've done all of her music, chamber chorals, and also all of Britain's chamber choral works. Every one is great. Every single piece she's ever written is incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Harold.
And now she just finished her 11th opera. She's 96 years old.
Whoa.
Yep.
Amazing.
Orlando. Yep.
So do you prefer modern composers, or do you ever do really traditional thing?
I started my Canticum Novum in 1973 because I had studied with Paul Maynard, who was the keyboard player with the New York Pro Musica. I got my master's degree at Queens College with him. My great love at that point was Renaissance music. So I started Canticum Novum because there was no other volunteer choir in the city doing Renaissance, and I did that for 2 years, and then I said to my board, I really have to do the St. John Passion. They said, oh, no, we're a small madrigal group. I said, yes, we're doing the St. John Passion. And, so I guess I've always done contemporary music, but not much of it. But when I performed Orpheus Behind the Wire by Henze, I was stricken. And by the way, on my 75th birthday concert next January, I'm doing 4 a cappella post-tonal masterpieces by Milton Babbitt, George Pearl, Hans Werner Henze, and Thea Musgrave. And the piece by Thea is not this one. It's called For the Time Being, Advent, and words by W.H. Auden. It's bleak. It's powerful. I did it once before with Michael York, the actor, as the narrator. And so that's my challenge for my 75th birthday.
Tell us one more time the date and place.
That's going to be January 26th at the New York Society of Ethical Culture, 2 West 64th Street. I'm doing most of my concerts there in the subsequent seasons. I also started something called New Notes Initiative, where I'm doing over the course of the next 3 seasons or so, probably about 8 concerts of emerging composers. No commissions, just getting young, working with Bard College, American Composers Orchestra, Missy Mazzoli's Lunar Composers Lab, to present and to mentor young composers and present their works. But I'm throwing in the Bach motets, I'm throwing in Ravel, Hindemith, Debussy.
Hindemith wrote for a vocal?
6 chansons, yes.
Oh my God. I know
Brilliant.
because I'm a violist. Hindemith is like a
Right.
pioneer
Right.
of a viola repertoire.
Right.
Yeah, I did not know. But one more question for you before I move down to Sophie. The concert hall in that video is spectacular. Where is it?
It is. It's St. Mary the Virgin, or they call it Smoky Mary because of all the incense. It's 145 West 46th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. Wow. I've done a lot of performing there. It's too big for certain things, but it's good. It's good acoustics.
It's very good.
Even
very
in
good.
back, even if you're sitting way in back, you can hear pretty darn well. Yeah.
Yeah, the recording sounds very good to me right now. I'm not sure to you. Yeah.
Well, it was very professionally made. 5 cameras, the whole bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
St. Mary the Virgin. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Amazing. New York has, New York is not London, it's not Italy, not France, but still we have so many wonderful venues, for us to perform. And
Right.
Sophia, can we listen to your work? You want to tell us a little bit of,
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say, I'm so grateful that Harold has been doing this for young composers. And for me personally, when Harold approached me, I've never written a choral work before, and it was just such an incredible opportunity to be able to work with 16 professional singers and the kinds of textures and possibilities that could give. That was a really exciting prospect for me. And
let me just jump in before very briefly.
Yeah.
The 50 ASCAP composers that I commissioned, only one had ever written for chorus before, and now a lot of them are after that experience.
Yeah, I think for me at least, I don't associate choir with contemporary music repertoire very well. Maybe I just don't know that much, but it definitely feels like a kind of niche thing because we think about Bach, when we think about choir. So that was an amazing opportunity. Anyway, so should I show my piece, open it up or talk about it?
Yeah, you can talk about, or we can listen to it. We'll just pick the beginning to about 2 minutes. And would you like to talk about it, or should I just play?
Yeah, I can maybe just a little bit. So
Okay.
the piece that I am sending is called Insects. It's written for string quartet. It was from 2 years ago, so it was a somewhat aged piece. But it's 3 miniatures for string quartet, and I was thinking about it in terms of 3 sounds of insects. So the first movement, or the first miniature, is this idea of a person from afar looking at a swarm of insects. So it's just like a mass of sound that's evolving. And the second miniature, you're moving closer to these insects and you see the individuals, but there's still a lot of them. There's overwhelming. And the third miniature is you're looking at 1 or 2 insects and you're really focusing on their movement of their individual legs. So it's 3 different portraits of insect sounds, basically.
And when you say miniature, how long the whole piece?
So it's 7.5 in total, and I think the first one is 1.5 minutes, the second one is 2 minutes, and the third one's 4 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, question for you, a composer or composers, classical way of writing things or symphonic music or chamber music. Usually first movement is fast, the second movement is slow, third movement is minuet, and last movement is pretty fast. So when you write something like that for movement, do you totally take the freedom, or do you somewhat consider the old structure?
For me personally, I don't really think about that very much. It's more about where I want the music to be going, and of course, I think about structure and how things develop. But I think that particular structure is not something that I keep in mind necessarily. Yeah.
Great. All right, let's listen to the first movement. I can visualize this music. Beautiful.
How do they stay together?
It was Jack Quartet, so
Ooh.
they just read it and they can play it. Yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful music,
Thank
beautiful
you.
playing. Yeah, it's not easy to play, right? Not easy to count, and
Yeah,
lots
a lot
of double stops.
A lot of
Yeah.
microphones, yeah.
Yeah. So, Sophia, when did you come to this country? Your English so good.
Oh, my mom's Chinese American, so I kind of grew up with both cultures a little bit, even though I grew up in China. And I was, in international schools in high school. So, and then I came here for college.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
yeah.
that piece, I guess, like that first miniature, I was very much exploring with this idea of like a sound mass, like a collective that is somehow one thing, but at the same time, it's rippled with tension within that collective. Like that's an idea that really fascinates me musically and also philosophically. And actually, the piece that I have for Harold's for the New York Virtual Soul Singers for next week's concert has a similar idea with voice in like a different context, but I also kind of explore this idea of a collective that is very tensioned within, and I think like musically that's something that really intrigued me.
Very nice. I like the texture of it, and also there's like a tension and then release, and yeah, great. All right, so let's see, what else do we have? I have music from, let's see, Sophie, Grant. Yeah, Grant, would you like to talk about what is your composition?
Sure. So I sent everyone Panacea. This is a concerto for live processed flute with wind ensemble. I wrote this for the soloist is actually my fiance, and the ensemble she was playing with professionally at the time, the Coast Guard band. The live processing aspect. So she performs into a mic that's clipped onto her instrument. That goes into a computer that's running a program called Max MSP, which then I programmed to essentially digitally multiply, transpose, delay, otherwise alter her sound, turning her one flute into kind of its own orchestra that's able to hold its own truly against or with the wind band. So this opened up all kinds of interesting new relationships possible within the concerto genre. I think a lot of concerti focus on an adversarial relationship between the instrument and the ensemble. This piece, I really wanted to create moments where the flute would sound as much like the band as possible, and the band would sound as digital as possible through various orchestration tricks. It's a little bit hard to choose a 2-minute segment from this piece because overall it moves quite glacially and develops quite continuously. It also opens up with a 2.5-minute long flute and electronics cadenza. So if we want to hear the band enter, maybe we should start around 2 minutes in, 1 minute 50 seconds, and then the band will enter. Prior to this point, the flute's electronic texture is just kind of gradually building and expanding around a tonal center of D.
Okay, great. All right, I'm starting.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that the string platform is doing something very interesting with the audio quality there. Sounds a little bit 16-bit.
Beautiful,
But
beautiful. It's like, again, this is so visual to me. It's like I can visualize a sort of a film scenery of a really wide shot and very, I don't know, heroic or something, whatever you can interpret. I have a question for three of you, Harold and Miles and Sophia. Do you have a question for Grant? This music. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're muted. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Harold, I just muted you. Sorry. Oh, can you? Yeah. Can
Okay.
you?
I was just wondering if you ever plan on using that in your medical practice as a healing agent, because that is so soothing and so meditative. You
No,
might think about that.
before you put them to sleep, you play them first.
Or
It's
just, or
true.
just
Could
yeah.
could be very good for anesthesiology.
Yeah,
Use
yeah,
that as a supplemental treatment.
yeah, yeah. Anybody else have any comments?
Well, go
It's
ahead,
just good.
Miles.
Oh,
Miles, go ahead.
it's just great to hear your music again. I haven't heard it in a couple of years. Funnily enough, I was just mentioning that I remember that English horn piece for you and Lilia that you played. This is a fantastic piece where like he uses multiphonics to really create a chorale, which is such a rare use of multiphonics, and like is something I would never even dare attempt because I don't play any of those instruments well enough to know how they're created and which ones are stable and which can actually lead into the other ones. But I don't know, I've just admired that piece for a long time, and it's cool to know that you got a bunch of other stuff, you know, coming down the pipes despite medical school and everything. That's very impressive. So I'll go check out the rest of that can share.
Yeah.
I have
Thank you
a
so much.
question.
Really kind.
I have a question for Grant and Miles. When you were at Yale, did you ever work with or hear of the Elm City Girls Choir or the United Choir School, run by Rebecca Rosenbaum?
I don't think so.
I
Your
don't think
sister.
so, no.
My
sister?
my niece
Okay.
runs that.
Oh, wow.
Great.
Yeah. I just
Awesome.
heard Britain's War Requiem in Manhattan, done by Yale, and she brought her young youth choir in to do that.
Wow, great.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Sophia, do you have any comments?
Well, I wish I can, hear the whole piece and like, I guess like with more better audio quality. But I guess when you were composing it, like, how were you thinking in terms of the live processing? Like, how was that a part of your process? I'm curious.
Yeah, right. I think settling on the live processing took about as long as actually composing the piece did. At that point, I was still earlier into using live processing. I've now used like a similar patch to this a few times, and I think I can start out now with like a better sense of I want this, and then end up with something approximating that idea. At this point, it was a lot of trial and error. I knew I wanted something that could create harmony, that would transpose the flute, something that would give it, this solo instrument, the ability to kind of create its own sound mass orchestra. And I think just getting to that point was a lot of trying things out and seeing what worked. Otherwise, I also wanted the electronics to progress. So she's actually a few different times, and even just that segment, she's pressing a pedal and changing the presets, changing the transposition, changing the density of the texture she's creating. But I wanted those points to come across, for the most part, with a couple exceptions, as gradual changes. Nothing like, oh, she definitely pressed the preset pedal and changed the electronics processing at this point. Instead, keeping everything very organically, continuously evolving.
That's cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Have you guys consider writing music for films? Any of you?
I've done it a little, always very different projects. If it comes up and it's with a director I want to work with, then certainly. But these are all like small, generally fairly artsy films. But it's interesting. Sometimes nice to work in fixed media rather than to end up with a score, which is basically a psychological document, kind of like attempting to cast a spell on people who will hopefully think that it is worth summoning something from themselves to play.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, same. Like, I've also done like 2 small projects on film. I think the whole thing is I'm very open to doing that because, you know, like writing music composing is like a medium of creativity, and it can be combined with other mediums to make really interesting things, whether it's fixed media or like dance or what else. But I guess like I'm not necessarily thinking about doing film music as a career because I think that's a very different thing than collaborating with people. I think for me, it's still the core of it is the music making, which is I want that to be in the foreground rather than like music being the background of whatever I end up making.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for Harold. When you conduct a brand new piece, how do you start? Because there's no recording of it.
And well, just to go back a little bit before I answer that,
Okay.
I never even listened to recordings of music of Bach or Mozart or Handel before any piece I choose to conduct. I never listen to it because I don't want anybody else's interpretation. Let's start with that. As far as the working with pieces that have never been done before, I just do a lot of marking up of scores. You know, I just lay the groundwork. I just figure everything out, and I don't sit there, practicing the patterns. I stopped doing that in my 20s. But there are all kinds of issues, like if the sopranos divide and the basses, if the sopranos divide and the altos don't, perhaps for a while, even for one measure, perhaps I'll have a 3-part divisi. So some like 1 or 2 altos will join the second soprano part. I mark up the score. I repeat things. I repeat the tempo marking. If a composer writes a new tempo marking, sometimes I put in the word faster, just so I'll remember or I'll have in front of me that this new tempo marking is faster than the older one. I put verticals and triangles. And the vertical is the quarter. The triangle is dotted quarter. Sometimes I put patterns in. I draw like 3 triangles and 9/8 times. I just mark the scores a lot to help me in performance because there's so much going on. I circle the entrances. If the sopranos are not singing for a page, I make sure to circle their entrance, so I'll cue them. Just a lot of study.
So,
So
you conduct without baton, right?
Yeah, I like the freedom. I just love the freedom of the hands and the fingers through the air. I've conducted with batons, like I did the Verdi Requiem in Carnegie Hall with 250 singers and a St. Luke's Orchestra, and I actually there I might have not used a baton, but there are times when, for example, the St. Matthew Passion, which is over 3 hours long, and you get tired, and so if you use a baton, you don't have to move the arm as much. You can just go like that, and the baton will go like that.
Right.
So just
Right.
to save.
Yeah.
And also it's easier for people to see.
Yeah.
If a chorus is 75 feet from me, it's easy to see a baton.
Right. So you're a conductor. You always tell people what to do. Have you ever played an instrument and you are in the orchestra or in the chorus?
I've never played an instrument in an orchestra, but I conducted the Queen's College Band for 4 years, and I've been a church organist for 55 years, different churches. But I don't consider myself really a really good keyboard player, but country churches, I studied cello a little bit. I studied bassoon a little bit, but no, basically I grew up singing since I was very young. I have a very quick anecdote, which is funny, about film writing for films. I got a call one day from Osvaldo Golijov, Golijov, wonderful composer, whose opera Einadamar, my chorus performed in Carnegie Hall. He called me a few years later that he was wondering if I'd be interested in having my choir, New York Virtuoso singers, sing in a Francis Ford Coppola movie, because Osvaldo was writing us music for him for his second collaboration. And I talked to Francis Ford Coppola's assistant, and I gave her a budget after she described how much music there was. It was only like $7,000 or $9,000 it would have cost them. And she said, "Oh, well, can your singers use, instead of money, can they use wine from Mr. Coppola's orchard in California?" I said, "No, professional singers need to be paid in money." And it didn't go anywhere. It never happened.
What if somebody say, "I'm sober, I don't drink wine"? So
Exactly.
okay. Talking about New York virtuoso, I call it strings now. New York virtuoso singers. So tell us a little bit about the ensemble, please.
Well, it's usually 16 singers, but we've had 12, we've had 8, we've had quartets, and we had 120 singers 3 times. In fact, if you go back, well, we were the chorus in residence at the Bard Festival for 5 years. So we did the Missa Solemnis of Beethoven, Schoenberg's Gurrelieder, and Mahler's Eighth. And Leon Botstein met with me, the conductor and the founder, and he said he wanted me to get 120 singers for Mahler's Eighth. And I said, "How many are in the orchestra?" He goes, 120. I said, "Well, when all the brass are in, there's going to be a balance problem. You need more than 120 professionals." But that concert alone, I think, cost him like $90,000. So if you go back, just play the first 30 seconds or 10 seconds of the Missa Solemnis right next to my Thea Musgrave that you clicked on before. I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah.
But it's the most astounding. I mean, I had 30 incredible tenors opening the Gloria of the Missa Solemnis of Beethoven. There it is. It's the bust of Beethoven on the bottom left. Just play the opening of that.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, Messiah?
No, it's the Missa Solemnis. Oh. Yeah, just skip ahead a little bit. You can't really tell here.
Where is it?
Well, you can't really tell the grandeur of it on screen like this, but I encourage people to listen to it. It's a great piece, but we had a. That's okay.
To my ear, it sounds pretty good, but I don't know. Sometimes when my guests side, the audio could be not as good.
Well, the point is, the size of the group changes. We've had 60 people. We had 2 concerts in the same evening once. We did the premiere of Christopher Theophanides's Cows of Apollo in Brooklyn with, I think, Michael Christie. I think he conducted that at the exact time that I conducted another concert with another bunch of my New York virtuoso singers in Manhattan.
How many concerts you do in general?
Well, I produce 3 or 4 a year, and then we get hired to do others. So, yeah.
That's great.
How many are singing on this concert? Because I thought it was 12.
16.
It is 16.
But for certain pieces, I'm having, for 2 pieces written in 8 parts, I'm having 8 singers, and for Sophia's piece, I'm doing 12 singers.
Okay.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So back to Grant. Shark FinTech has a question for you. What instruments do Grant and Sophia composer on? We can see Miles a piano player.
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you want to answer the question? I think for you and Sophia.
Mm-hmm. Sure. My primary instrument is oboe. Although I have in grad school, I did pick up bass voice, which allowed me to do things such as perform in the choir of the B minor Mass with Harold Rosenbaum. Exactly. Good memories. That was a fantastic time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's on YouTube. You can just type in Rosenbaum Bach B minor Mass, and you'll see the whole thing. 5 cameras, really.
Awesome.
It was
Awesome.
our swan song of the group.
And Grant, how do you? Oh, Sophia, can you mute yourselves?
Oh, yes.
How did you become a composer?
Yeah, it was very early on into learning music. I picked up oboe in 6th grade, and pretty quickly, for some reason, maybe it was like the relatively low quality educational oboe pieces available when you've played for a year and a half to 2 years. But very quickly, I wanted to start creating my own music. The first piece I had performed in public was in 8th grade. So really performing and composing, I think, just kind of came from the same place early on.
That's interesting. I was thinking when you say low quality music, and I have to brag about my son. I have a 23-year-old son. He now plays with the Pittsburgh Symphony. He's a violist, and when he was like 16, he already is a very good cook. And it's because my cooking, does not inspire him. So he's like, let me cook myself, Anyway, yeah. So it's funny. But we're talking about what instrument do you play? Sophia, what instrument do you play?
I started learning the piano, and I never got that good, but that is what I use to play. I guess compose, but also I like sketching things on this paper and like writing words, trying to describe what I'm thinking sonically. So I just try to use like a variety of tools. Piano's definitely part of it. Singing something, like singing a line, whatnot. And yeah, by the way, I love the B minor Mass, and I actually was conducting the Columbia Bach Society for 2 years. I just finished my last concert 2 weeks ago, and at one point I programmed the Kyrie, and it was too hard for us, but it was a good time. Yeah.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I know Miles plays the piano, and Miles, tell us a little bit how you became a pianist. Is your background musician family or what?
Not really. My mom's a good amateur player, adult beginner at the cello. My dad is not a musician at all. I really wanted to play the piano. We had a piano in the house, and I really, really begged for lessons. And yeah, it's been a long route to actually deciding to be a professional musician. It's had a lot of that's too complicated a story to tell right now, but I'm happy I am trying it. I'm happy that that's where I am at this point.
Thank you. We have Shakfin Tech has another question. For any of you, any of the composers, how hard it is to take composition from concept and pen to paper to working with a talented conductor like Harold, seeing it all through to being performed.
It's different with every piece. I don't know. Sometimes a piece can hang you up for years, involving many drafts, or even just involving one draft that refuses to sort of finish itself. Sometimes it goes quite quickly. This piece for Harold was quite quick. I wrote it in like 9 or 10 days, and then a few more days of polishing. But that's because I wasn't trying to do anything fancy. I just tried to write some good counterpoint. I wasn't really trying to do much other than create sort of an arc that fulfilled its own sort of.
Nothing fancy, huh?
Harold, you did say
don't say anything fancy.
Like you can make it hard. You did say all singers can sing anything.
Well,
you can make.
We'll see. We'll see next week.
Great,
Yeah.
sounds good to me.
Yeah, I would love to come. Okay. You'll get me
Yes.
a guest pass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll mark it down right now.
Yeah, and I have a question for you that in terms of choral music, right? I'm an instrumental player. I do not compose, but a long time ago, like Renaissance time, instrumental music is not that important. Vocal is more important. So, for you to have words to compose, do you find it easier or more complicated? Because you have to think about what the text is about. Does it make sense?
You're asking who?
Anybody? You?
No, not me. I'll let them answer that.
How about Grant?
Sure. I think that the text for me personally can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's a quick solution to blank page syndrome, where you're told, write a piece for this ensemble. It's got to be 5-6 minutes long, and then you just can become paralyzed thinking of where do I even start. The text can give you a really nice structure, can inform your musical decision making. On the flip side, you have to actually choose a text, and there's basically nearly infinite options out there from any language choice, time period, etc. So I spent a very long time before settling on a text for this piece. But then once it was set, it was at that point it became very helpful as a scaffold. Informed really every aspect of the music, from the linear aspects, melody, harmony, everything.
Fascinating. Yeah. So, Sophia, do you have any intake?
Yeah, I actually text is something I'm very intrigued by compositionally, because I've always been really interested in literature. I used to write some poems, not anymore, but I'm really fascinated by language and meaning, and how that can be amplified or extended or distorted or changed through music. And so I actually love working with text and with voice, with singers, or even like the idea of voice, even if I'm working with non-singers. And so but that's something I'm very much interested in music. So when I was, when I was writing this piece, I chose the text, "All that is solid melts into air," which is part of, it's a English translation of a quote from Karl Marx in his Communist Manifesto. So there's like this kind of philosophical, political, historical background and weight to the text. And then, so I was interested in working with all of those connotations and putting that into music and seeing how these different mediums can transfigure and add new meaning to what is experienced. So that's very much like into my alley, I would say.
That's awesome. And you're going to be in Columbia study philosophy?
I'm graduating with a philosophy degree in like 4 days, and then I'm gonna go into the DMA program at Columbia for composition. So I'm starting now. I'm just doing music afterwards, but I've been doing music and philosophy for the last 4 years.
So do you find a link from philosophy to music?
Do I find
link?
Oh, yeah. I think not directly, obviously, because they're very different, but definitely philosophical ways of thinking inform how I approach life and also how I approach music, for sure. Yeah. Like,
that's awesome.
I like thinking about, what is music, and like this kind of question. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I don't want to ask you this question. I don't want to get too political, but I went to Columbia University for 3 times, and I made 2 short films during the protest. So it's on my YouTube channel. Oh, by the way, people who are listening, and you, 4 of you, please subscribe my YouTube channel. I have about 1,000 videos on my YouTube, and there are live interviews like this, and also I do a lot of shorts. On the shorts, I talk about music only, and then other is just a kind of all kinds of videos, film and shorts and cooking, and my son cooking and stuff like that. But anyway, Miles, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you write music, similar question, do you have it in your head, or do you sitting down just start to sketch it, or do you contemplating for a long time?
All of the above. Yeah, it's different every time. No, of course, it sort of it exists in your head in a way, but also working on and against the page helps it to exist more in your head. It's kind of a crazy feedback loop that I'm still learning about. I write by hand anytime I have the time, and then I engrave it all later. That's just sort of the best way that I can feel that I'm alone with the music. And I don't really like looking at a screen. And a lot of it just involves trying to imagine as forcefully as possible the sounds that I'm going to ask other people to play, or myself to play. I finally put a little bit of music in the chat. I'm on a phone, not a laptop.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let me
so
see.
I wasn't able, and I wasn't aware that we wanted to do that. But if we want to listen to 2 minutes, there's a piece there. Actually, incidentally, the BMI thing for me was quite a long time ago. It was 2018, I want to say. But this is the piece actually that BMI chose.
Okay.
The first movement of it, at least. But you could start it from the top, play for 2 minutes, or start it. Yeah, I don't know. That maybe makes the most sense. Sure. Yeah.
Man, that's brutal.
Wow.
I can't
Brutal.
play. I can't play.
Well, I did it to myself, so it was okay.
That's
Miles,
awesome.
can you please arrange that for choir?
Right, that's one
Man.
singer. That.
Oh my gosh, the clef for the double bass.
You know, I hear
No.
a little bit pentatonic.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not, it's mostly pretty diatonic chords actually in there. And this is actually pretty old for me. I mean, I started composing in earnest, like as an
Yeah.
adult. I started when I was very young, but I stopped when I was 12, and I started in sort of 2016. And that was the first chamber piece that I wrote. So in a way, it's like, feels, there are a lot of things that I would never do now. Actually, it's way more demanding of the players than in an unsatisfying way. I feel like it's more work than reward, actually, a lot of that stuff. So right now I feel sort of kind of far away from that sort of music where the meter shifts, but the pulse is so short that you can barely even entrain it in your body. That's a kind of rhythmic trick that I don't try to notate anymore. I try to let it actually be rubato and let players actually bring their own sense of timing, because I think that's actually what I really want anyway, when I'm trying to deviate from sort of clear, strict metronomic time. But yeah, it was a fun piece to write.
Wonderful. I have a
to play.
question. I have a very quick question for all of you. It's called rapid fire. In the end of my interview, usually I do that. And I would ask one person like 10 questions, but since you're just 4 of you, I'm just going to ask each one of a different question. Okay. Start with Harold. Harold,
Yes.
when you retire, which city, which country you want to go to live there?
I'm not going to retire.
I knew you were going to say
It's
that.
not an option.
New York
It's not
City.
an option. That's not an option.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. Okay. So, Grant, what is a useless skill you have?
A useless skill. Oh, wow. Jeez.
Music?
Yeah.
As an
That's very dark.
anesthesiologist.
That's a dark note to end on.
That's a hard one. That's a hard.
Geez, what else?
I'll come back. I'll come back with you. How about Sophia? Okay.
I got one.
Okay.
I am working on my ability to sing one note for. I've got it up to over a minute now, which I will not demonstrate on camera. I mean, it's very, very quiet, but I can sing a note for 1 minute now.
That's funny.
incredible.
I would call that pretty useful. Useless.
Maybe I should write a piece just for you for like
Yeah.
that skill, you know? Like,
Yeah,
Then it's
just-
useful. Yeah.
Pianissimo the whole time.
Yeah. Okay, Miles. What other languages you speak?
Oh, I speak Flemish because my mom's side is Belgian, and a bit of French. Not as good, but
Awesome. Awesome.
And
All right,
English,
Sophia.
sort of.
Question for you. What is your junk food? Number one junk food.
chocolate.
That's not junk.
Is that chocolate is not junk?
No, it's good for you. It's good for you.
I definitely do too much chocolate, but you know.
Ask me what's my junk food.
What is your junk food?
McDonald's French fries.
That's fair.
Okay, all right. So we also, I also do another thing before you go. Okay. Last word. We'll start with Sophia. Last word. Yeah.
Oh, just like general.
Last word
words.
to conclude our session.
Yeah, well, it was great meeting all of you, and I'm really excited for the concert next Sunday and to actually meet you guys. I don't know, in person maybe. But I look forward to hearing everyone's pieces, and I look forward to also hearing like the choir piece versus the pieces that we were looking at today. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great meet you. How about Miles?
Yeah, if it's one last word, then I would say thanks. If it's sort of a bit of a longer last word,
A phrase.
something similar. Yeah. I'm very sadly I won't be able to be in New York for this one. I'll have to be back in London for a workshop at the same time. But I'm really looking forward to hearing the video and hearing everybody's pieces. And I'm grateful to Harold for the chance to write for the ensemble. And I hope they're not too aggravated by the things I have demanded them to do.
We
But if
can
so,
sing.
I'm
They didn't
leaving
have-
town on the night of the concert just in case anyone's really mad.
They didn't have to accept this gig, so they have no right to be upset.
They
No,
need
no,
a
but
ther-
I'm pardon me.
no, they need a therapy afterwards.
Oh gosh, yeah, I hope not. No, then they should just not sing it, or
Just
then
kidding,
it's not a
just
worthwhile
kidding.
piece.
Just
Um,
kidding.
No, yeah, just looking forward to hearing all that music, and it's nice to meet you all now, and see you again, Grant, after a while, and yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, Ching,
Thank you,
for
Miles.
having us.
Thank you, Miles. All right, Grant. Last
I
word.
mean, my last word. I'm gonna sing one note for a minute now.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
No, maybe I'll hold off on that. But no, truly, thank you. This has been great. It's fantastic to work with the virtuoso singers and Harold. It's really fun to see his process rehearsing on the inside with him in your ensemble, and then to come around on the other side as a composer, and then even just the first rehearsal. I mean, I mentioned to you, Harold, that your group sight reading delivered a finer performance than I've had some fully rehearsed performances before. So very excited for the final result, and can't wait to see how everybody's different perceptions, ideas of music translate to the world of choral writing.
Thank you.
be a
Thank
lot
you
of
so
fun.
much. Yeah. Harold, have you heard the words called log line? LG. Log line. Log line means when you describe a film or a project, it's one sentence. One sentence. Yeah.
You want me to describe this project in one sentence?
No, I want you to conclude last word with one
Oh.
sentence.
Come to my concert. You'll enjoy it. Semicolon. You'll enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you so
And-
much. Yeah.
I just love working with these gifted composers and all composers, and keep doing it because they're despite the fact that people are saying classical music is dying and all that, forget it. There are over 40 million people in this country who sing in choirs. So they need you.
Awesome.
They might not
awesome.
know they need you, but they need you. I'll tell them they need you.
That's great. And I'm going to put, let me know if you want to put another link so we could do it on the description. And so people can click on it and then go to, and then all of you have social media, I know. And then I think most of you wrote, and so it's in description. So thank you so much. I want to thank our audiences and to be with us all this time. And please tell your friends, tell your relatives, and tell your family and this live talk so they can watch us as a replay. And again, my name is Ching Juhl, and when you get a chance, watch my film, long or short. And we're going to say goodbye, and eventually I want to interview Harold alone because he has so many stories, right, Harold?
What you want to hear some stories
No.
of mine sometime?
I wanted to interview you alone. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you have so much to say,
Well, I have a short autobiography called My Choral Journey. You can get on Amazon. A little plug there. It's full of stories, and the New York choral scene over 50 years too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we're gonna click on Leave Studio, and thank you so much for being here, and have a great Saturday. Okay. Bye now, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
I'll wait for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye. I'll wait for you to click.
What am I clicking here?
You're gonna click Leave Studio. I'm gonna end the stream. Okay. Yeah. There's
Leave Studio.